author of the books of 9 and 10 Penance. And I'm back again. Wonder if that works. Whoa. Nope, it does not. All right. There we have it. Back again doing another live reading on a Sunday. The final live reading for the weekend. From the book on the left, The Greatest Storm, the story of Allison White and Stephen Blackman. And it's book 2 in the series. It's a romantic comedy. Well, hopefully, I don't know, by chapter, what are we on, chapter 10? You should know that already if you've been following along. Anyways, we'll see if we'll get any viewers. I'm actually early today, which makes up for Friday. But the whole novel switches back and forth between Allison and Stephen. So, we just read, let's see, a couple of my favorite chapters. The Old Man and the Sea and The One That Got Away, which is, I really enjoyed. I thought it had a lot of good dramatic elements to it. But anyways, and then, The Old Man and the Sea, which I really enjoyed that chapter because the Stephen kind of goes a little cuckoo in it, a little crazy. This chapter is called Madness on the High Seas. And of course, Allison's probably going to go a little cuckoo in this chapter. It's 2 minutes in. All right. Anyways, there's my 2 books. The Magic Paintbrush is up. I'll get started here in a minute. And I read that whole book, so people can check it out. Boy, it's exhausting. I do this every day. I post something either here or on. I quit going to my Facebook, but I've been doing it on YouTube solid for 4 months now. But anyways, I'll be reading this chapter, and who knows, maybe I'll do another live video, but for now I'm going to read chapter 10, Madness on the High Seas. So hopefully, and it's up on my channel, you can check it out. You can order the book or you can check it out on Kindle. But anyways, here we go. I'm going to read the chapter now, Madness on the High Seas. Meanwhile, Allison had just picked up her oars and paddled away from another great tragedy at sea. The waters were eerily calm, and so was the air. It didn't provide anything that could blow on her sail and point her in the right direction, but at least she knew peace was finally found for all those lonely mermen. Hello. The gruesome end that had met them, the gruesome end that they had met. The gruesome end that they had met made her realize how wild and deadly of a place this is, how at any given moment things can take a turn for the worse. Though without them she would have never found her way. Whichever direction that was, the wind did not blow. She kept a steady stride towards the realm of unknown, until the sun began to fade into the glorious backdrop that once made up the playground of the gods. The sky filled with creamy patches of green and dark shades of amber gray. It melted like an ooze, merging into a dreary landscape of lapping waves against a grainy mist of blue and purple. She took a healthy swig of her tea, then unrolled the map and tied it off to the mast. The journey was finally taking a toll, though she hadn't traveled very far from where she'd started. The waves began to make noises, notes ringing out like an out-of-tune violin. The clouds towered above her in an allegorical scene from Dante's Inferno, stretching in wide panoramic view. She could hear them move as if clawing at an open wound. The laughter Isis left her with worked in between these two sounds in a faint echo. The ocean became a place of flickers and fears, flickering light one moment and darkness the next. Time clicked unevenly on a clock that moved at its own pace. The stars were erratic and wild, reflecting off the shadowy waves like fireflies dancing in a swampy marsh. Though strangely, the North Star remained still as the rest of the world rotated around her little boat. The offset hues of her surroundings changed just as rapidly as they moved, and as constant as her fears flickered and the sky blinked. She took another swig of her tea to be sure she hadn't sunk below the waterline. Her eyes glossed over. She tried to fight off sleep, fending against it with her rising might. The boat began to tip as it rocked back and forth in the well-salted ramblings of her mind. "What was that tapping on the bottom of my boat?" she asked, a very pertinent question. She swatted at the drifting haze as the waters started to flow in a nervous wake. The stir in the thick briny stew swirled, blinding her with illusions that randomly popped and sizzled. She knew none of it could possibly exist, but did they? Were these furry little critters real? No, that would just be absurd. Not even the reader is aware. Only a fool who tasted one too many droplets of salty air could believe any of this was grounded in reality. She paddled faster and faster, trying to escape. Was the water above her boat or below some sort of crossing line in the street? "Slow down, you're going too fast." "Look to the left, look to the right. Now look above, behind you, look out. What's that?" "Let the heavy moving traffic go first. Beep, beep, speed up. You don't want to get caught out here in the open in a pinch." Though I don't believe she was going anywhere that made any real sense. I think she just stopped rowing so she could work out a few thoughts in her head, as her mind had clearly wandered off to someplace far, far away. Laughter consumed her bright smile. She feared nothing and nothing feared her. Willed and determined to explore the deepest of depths insanity had to offer. The waves began holding long-winded conversations about her descent at a 90-degree angle. The clouds parasailed auspiciously, void of meaning or shape. Then, the next moment, unicorns flew in the air, alligators traversing the cosmos, hippos dancing with giraffes, and blackbirds squawking and cawing as they circle her boat. "What's the use in rowing if your best friend is a fly?" She laughed. "I'll just catch a ride from this tiny little speck," she thought to herself, a truly maddening thought. Was that a UFO? It could have been anything, but she didn't care. Day and night blended together, she descended into a place only dreamers dream of when they dream of their worst hell. Voices filled the air with contempt for the sea and all places lonely and like it. Was this the worst of it yet for Allison White? I think not. Let's hear if she has anything rational to say. Her conversation began with a teacup and a fish. "Why, hello. I didn't realize I wasn't alone." "Well, I'm a teacup and this is my fish." The fish gladly responded with a smoky grin. "Ha! What a funny thing to say. I'm lonely. Please don't sail away." "But I must, I must, I must. I have to be on with my day. That is, unless you jump into the sea and keep me in posthumous company." Allison prepared to leave her boat, armed with nothing more than a care in this world, but then the voice brought up a very good point. "Where are you going? You can't sail on in these waters without a boat." "Where did you go?" Allison replied with a dirty hiccup and a wheezing squeal. "I'm right behind you, not that far from your narrow point of view," the voice echoed from all sides. Allison turned around as her boat rocked in the rough patch that made up her well-rounded frame of mind. "Why, there you are. I thought I lost you for good." "No, not yet. We still have a long journey ahead, you and I. Oh, this will be fun, finding direction and hope. We'll make a game of it, one that you and I can play." "Through the thickest and thinnest of this briny stew?" Allison nodded, confident this is where she wanted to be. "You better believe it," the fish nodded back as he split in two. Allison's vision blurred. She counted them aloud. 1 fish, 2 fish, 3 fish, 4 fish, jellyfish. It was madness at its best as it ensued, sealing her fate forever at the edge of reason, in this place of endless swells and white coats that buckled in the back. Just one more fish in a teacup, and she would have never found her way. I've had about enough out of you. I'd prefer it if you leave, Allison counted to reason. I can't leave. Not yet. Not until you have another cup of tea. Shall I pour you one? Or would you prefer to wait till the marbles have rolled out of your head? What are you talking about? I haven't lost my marbles. They're all right here, Allison insisted as she jabbed her finger at her head. Whatever you say, but I'd be more concerned with that tapping noise under your boat, if I were you, the fish cruelly replied. Allison heard that tapping noise again. Where was it coming from? Personally, though it's only my opinion for what it's worth, I think she should just put those thoughts in a trunk, lock them up, wrap heavy chains around it, and send it straight to the bottom of the sea where hope will never be found. The war raged on as the visions became livid. The fish soon faded, nothing more than another myth that swelled in her head. Allison White sailed alongside Allison White, another delusion who lived with her inside the loony bin. The conversation went something like this. Hi, my name is Allison. What a funny coincidence. So is mine. Say, I like what you've done with your hair. What would you think if I put mine in a bow? Oh, your skin is so red and blotchy. Maybe you should just keep your hair down to cover it up. Allison unleashed a cruel beast, nipping and taking a bite. What did you just say to me? I'm sorry, you must have misunderstood. No, I think I understand perfectly well. Look, there can only be one of me and one of you, but not both who can pull off the same look, one of them most certainly said. Quit licking your lips. Now get out of here, fast, she said with a fist. Fine, you conceited, bull-headed, petty, ooh. If she didn't have anything nice to say, then she wasn't going to stick around where she clearly wasn't wanted. The two drifted apart and went their separate ways. Allison really felt bad about the way she treated herself. After all, she could relate. It's just that she's had such a trying voyage, and it left her mind to wander and say things she really didn't mean. Then another vision of her inner thoughts sailed by, so she gave herself another shot. Wait, don't go. I need a friend. I'm sorry for the way I treated myself. No, I'm sorry. It was I who was being rude. It should be me who apologizes. Then a third party sailed right into the middle of the conversation. Allison, the one who really did exist, felt like a third wheel. They ignored her completely. Oh, how horrible it is when your closest friends pretend you don't even exist. Girls sometimes can be cruel. The two rolled their eyes and left Allison with a final thought. I'd stop pestering us and answer that knock on the bottom of your boat. Allison sighed while the two continued to pretend she wasn't even there when a bottle drifted by. She let it pass, as it didn't concern her. She was still hopeful she could salvage one of their friendships. Then another bottle floated by, and then another. Her curiosity grew, along with the dirty hay fever. Achoo! She picked the two bottles up as they drifted near. Then she paddled over to the other one that got away and sat down on her badly worn brain. She removed the cap from the first bottle and found a note stuck inside. So she pulled it out and read the words that had been carefully placed and inked with a pen. The tapping on the bottom of her boat banged away with every word of it she spoke. It was a strange note she read. She assumed madness was something she knew well. But after reading the contents of this letter, she wondered if the one who wrote it was one of those crazy types. You know the kind that I mean. This is what the letter said as Allison's eyes rolled on and read. Dear to whom it may concern, I love thee not. I think I love thee with all my heart. I often sit on the beach alone and count the waves rolling in. For each wave that crashes against a shore, that is how much I am sure I love thee. Though we have parted ways through the endless swells that make up a fine sea, I am rather confident I will find thee, my one and only true love. Sincerely, the crab who wandered on shore one day. Wait, what? Was that letter written by a crab? Okay, now I know for a fact I'm the one who needs help. I'm sitting here in the middle of the ocean reading a love letter written by and addressed to another crab. Yes, I'm sure I've completely lost it, but will I ever make it back? Allison had to be sure madness was hers and not something shared by a crab, so she opened the next bottle and read the other letter, hoping it wasn't addressed to and written by another crab. This is what the second letter said as she continued to listen to more than just good old solid reasoning and plain common sense. Dearest dear, my love who waits for me still, it is cold and lonely on this beach. The man who follows me, I fear he may try to boil me alive. Please send help. I just know if I can't find a place to crawl into and hide soon, surely I will not make it another night on this beach alone. He claims he is only looking for a friend, but I don't believe him. After all, he'll talk to anything that comes walking along. I'm a crab, not a human. He couldn't possibly understand what that's like. Yet still he tries. Again, please send help, or I will be boiled alive. The man I'm with, I am sure, by now he has completely gone mad. After all, he can't even remember his own name. Sincerely, your one and only true love, the crab who sits on this beach and waits. Hello to the people that tuned in, and I guess a lot of people tuned in and left this round. That's all right. Anyways, here we go. Yes, that's it. I've come to the conclusion that I can't have conclusions on my own. I've gone completely mad, just like the one who wrote this letter. This could have quite possibly all started before I even left on my trip. What a fool I've been to think there was a purpose behind the promise I've kept. The one I love may not even exist. Allison began to wonder if the message she received in the bottle on the beach was not written by Stefan, but perhaps by this lonely crab who had also gone insane. That quite possibly she was risking her life and sanity and doing it all to save a lonely crab stuck on the beach. She questioned her motives thus far and the real reason she set out on this quest. Those are good questions for someone to ask that has gone off the deep end and fears they may never come back. Fortunately, for Allison, she had gone insane, but she was doing it all for something that was well with her sanity, despite the questions that were raised. Just to be sure, for her own peace of mind, she had to open the third bottle. If this last and final letter was not written by and addressed to another crab, then she would know in her heart she hadn't completely lost it, and her reasons for sailing the open ocean would have an answer that was sane all along. She removed the cap and then tried to remove the piece of paper. The letter wouldn't budge, so she turned it upside down and began banging on it like a ketchup bottle. The letter was stubborn. It moved like ketchup. It acted like ketchup too. Then she wondered if it was not a letter stuck inside at all. Aha! But it must be. Of course, it's a letter. I can see the ink written between the lines. She was determined, willed like no other, to remove the letter and prove she hadn't gone insane. So she stuck her tongue out and began to think and think and think and think, until finally a hiccup and a trombone's whine for a thought. Nope, that one was no good. So she grasped onto the edge of the letter and tried tugging on it with her pinky. That's when she realized something was inside the bottle holding on to the letter. She looked through the glass, then turned the bottle around to the other side. Nothing. Whatever it was careful to hide. So she twirled the bottle as fast as she could. When that didn't work, she continued her pursuit by simply changing direction. Aha! It worked! Allison caught a glimpse of this tiny little red beast holding on to her sanity. It was a lonely little crab, and quite possibly the one who wrote the other two letters. Go on, clamp down if you want to. Make yourself into a claw. It won't do you's no good, you know. The letter will soon be mine. But it wouldn't do her no good. The crab held on tight. Allison kept at it, but by the time she won this game of cat and mouse and orangutan, the letter had been shredded to pieces. It wasn't worth her time and energy anymore. So she threw the empty bottles back out into the ocean and gave chance to another more worthy to prove her sanity was still intact. Allison laughed erroneously as the visions found a way back in. A mermaid in the sea, an elephant that can fly. Now I've seen everything, she thought to herself, another maddening thought. She was sure now, without a doubt, her mind had wandered off to someplace far, far away. While the mists and forgotten tales and dreams of grandeur surrounded her boat, stopping by to check in, just to make sure she didn't check out, the fish in the teacup appeared, wearing a fashionable hat, if you can believe that. Why, hello, Allison. Nice to see you again. I don't know about you, but I'm having the time of my life. Now that was just truly absurd. A fish wearing a hat? Ha! Please, you'll believe anything I write. 1 fish, 2 fish, 3 fish, blue fish. If any more fish in teacups come sailing along, I'm going overboard. Allison truly thought to herself a reasonable thought. Her own teacup filled to its capacity and began spilling over. The madness had peaked. Her eyes twitched and snapped, red and pink. This time she didn't stop to talk to herself. Who seriously would? I certainly don't talk to crazy people who feed pigeons in the woods. Allison picked at her self-esteem. She spiraled further into oblivion as she sized herself up and her ability to see the long journey ahead. She looked to her right. I don't think you have what it takes to sail on in these waters alone. Look at yourself. You're a mess. She then looked to her left. Those nails are filthy. She obviously can't take care of herself. Someone should call a doctor and have her committed. Allison stepped in her defense. She really didn't see a problem with her looks. Besides, she didn't have a mirror to check. She really didn't. Where was I? As far as her own name, she insisted she could remember, but that was a thought long gone, left floating on the waves of her demise when she began this descent into madness at the beginning of her trip. Allison didn't care much for their mean-spirited taunts, but she soon found a new friend, and there were plenty more where that came from. She's hopeless, lost to us all. She'll never find the island or her one true love. I can too, she spoke out of turn. You've made a fool out of us all, Allison White, the moment you started talking with a fish in a teacup. She probably doesn't even realize she lost it when the blackbird started circling her boat. The tapping noise on the bottom of her boat growled and roared with every vein that popped in her brain. You better answer that knock before it gnaws a hole in the bottom of your boat and we all start to sink to your level. Someone brought up an interesting thought. At this juncture, it was impossible to hear anything anyone else had to say. She better get it together or none of us will be coming back from this trip. She can't even keep one silly little squirrel from causing a knot in her boat to pop. Allison was really starting to panic. What did she mean by answer that knock, gnawing away at the bottom of her boat? The knot in the bottom of her boat finally busted loose, and a nut came rolling out. Water shot out of the hole. She plugged it up with the nut, but then someone brought up another good point. That will never work. How are you supposed to keep that squirrel from trying to get its nut back? You better think things through before you go plugging up holes in your boat. Allison looked down at the hole. There it was, a squirrel trying to pull its nut back out. That was the last straw. She finally cracked that nut wide open. There was no other way out of this mess but to simply jump into the ocean. It seemed like a good idea, so she did just that. She jumped in, leaving behind all the cares of the world, the fish sailing in the teacup, the voices in her head that wouldn't shut up. She left it all behind and finally gave up. On her way down, she heard a fading memory of her sanity. Time for another cup of tea, time for you and me, time to jump into the sea, said the fish in the teacup as he poured Allison a lead-filled drink, extra frothy with sprinkles on top. Then a few of her friends showed up just to say their final goodbyes to the condemned. It's about time she grew up. Yeah, what a nut, she sputtered with 2 fingers and her lips chitter-chattering it up. I think I speak for everyone here when I say you ruined a perfectly good boat. Those were the last words she heard before she hit bottom. Her face lit up with a smile as she descended into another realm. She waved goodbye. The war was finally over, though it was worth it to her to never see another rude fish in a teacup speak to her ever again. Her body grew numb. Nothing, it seemed, nothing would bother her anymore. Then she felt something tug against her leg. It felt warm. Before she knew it, she was pulled out of the water and pushed back up onto her boat. She looked out into the sea. An unknown figure vanished as a shadow beneath the waves. Shivering and wet, she took a bite to eat, and a final thought, one fitting to end a night like this. That is, when she gets back, the first question she will ask the Olavs is, "What did you put in that tea?" Okay. I didn't have many viewers this weekend, but that's all right. It's the end of that chapter, and the next chapter is Isis, the Temptress of the Sea. And so we'll get to learn a little bit more about her. And next weekend I'll be reading again. And the next chapter after that I'll be introducing a new character. One that it's actually one of my other favorite chapters in the book. And that's got the long tongue twister in it. So hopefully you'll tune in for that one. Put this book back. And I hope people have been enjoying it. I hope people have been going back and listening to me read. If you like hearing stories, especially romantic comedies. May do another live video again today or sometime this week where I'm just talking about stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I think I was doing these videos at night and I got a lot of responses, but the people responding were usually pretty crazy or not very polite, so I started doing this in the morning. The only time I can do that is on the weekends. But the most I get, and hello, the 2 people that said hi, that's about all I get. But that's fine, It's better than dealing with people who are rude. Certainly don't want to talk to any teacups and fishes. But yeah, I guess I'll just keep making this content, and hopefully I'll get more people to listen and maybe leave a review on one of my books. But I think I'll close it out there, and maybe I'll come back later. Thanks for tuning in.